Okay. Okay.
Interesting.
All right. So thank you very much for joining me today. Um, it it's hopefully going to be a little bit of a treat. Um, so I believe you have some questions for me already lined up.
I do. So, this is your. All right. So, if you wanted to do like an introduction thing, should I like? You want me to ask you like some things about your ability, or you just want me to go straight into my own questions on me?
Well, the first thing I'll say, because we are actually already recording, but
Yeah, but we didn't really
the
discuss.
first
So, well, the technical difficulties we had.
yeah. So the technical difficulties were this that I'm the recorded image is actually I'm meant to be in the big screen, whereas I'm now actually in the small screen, and my client is in the big screen, but it's obviously fate has decreed this is the way we're moving forward on this. This was meant to happen, so that's going to happen. So I suggest you just dive in with what
All right.
you had prepared because fate has decreed it, and we'll see what comes out for the viewers.
All right. Well, so nobody would know. I have been like, so let's just say this, like, because if I say it, then you'll kind of know to tune in to what I'm trying to get at, because I'll build up
Oh,
to the
cool.
questions. So all my life, it's been really difficult for me to get anything going, and I feel like there's been something holding me back. And then, in theory, like what 2 Mays ago, I don't remember, it was 2016. I had that event where like my DNA was changed and things were a little bit better, but it's still like I missed a huge piece of the puzzle, and I went through this horrible series of events where like I was just so depressed. I just couldn't. It's hard to get the gumption. It's hard to get the gumption to do anything. And then I started getting that a little bit, and then the accident happened, um, where I
Oh, was it?
felt.
Can I ask that? Do you feel it was an accident, or was it something
No,
almost like a
no.
divine intervention?
Yeah, no, I do feel it that. I'm just terming it the accident. Just like yes, I do. Like you were saying before, I do believe it does feel like it was supposed to happen. Um, which is kind of disturbing, I guess, in a way. Mm.
So
And I mean,
let's just go back to the viewers. So I'll just give you a background to the viewers. The essentially you were pushed off some scaffolding and fell quite a large distance to the ground. And in fact, you're lucky to, in some ways, to be alive because, as far as I can gather, you broke your back and your leg. Is
and
that correct?
and the ladder from on top of the scaffolding fell down on top of me and broke my ribs and punctured my lung.
Right.
That
So
insult,
they tried hard.
yeah, right. It was like I do feel. I mean, when it happened, like I did see my own death. I did see like if it could have happened. I saw like my own surgery, and then I refused to go to the hospital right away because I thought I could walk away from it. That was
Right.
dumb. So actually, I got life flighted to Pittsburgh to get that worked on.
Yes.
And I'm going back really shortly to get in like a week, well, a week and a half from now to get surgery
Right.
to remove the metal that they put in right directly previous to the accident.
Right.
Uh, so like after that, I guess my final healing will begin. I already like I'm doing a lot better, and I did go back to work 1 day a week the past 2 weeks. So
Right.
that's a little bit of a plus, and I do feel a little better now that I've done that. But like
Yes.
even like just recently during this recovery phase, it's just been like I've just been racked. Like I should have had plenty of time to work on things, but it was like I mean, I did work on some things. Don't get me wrong. I've done a lot of sketching and I've done a lot of other things, but I haven't, really. It's so hard to actualize my potential, if you will. Like how does, like by a lot of my questions right now refer to how do I start to get things to actually start happening? Like how do I get things
Right.
to actually start working? You know what I mean? Like as opposed to just continually falling apart every time I try to do anything. Like it just doesn't never seem to stick. Like it's never seemed to get like any sort of momentum, if that even exists, to going
Right.
to actualize my own potential. Like I mean, because I do have some as far as art is concerned. At least I don't. It's been like it's hard for me to even. Sometimes it's very hard for me to even believe that it's just possible for me to have any success because I feel like I've been such a quote unquote failure all this time. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it feels struggling against myself, and
Yes.
it's almost like a thick fog that keeps me from really being able to focus, really being able to get any of the things that I really want to do done, like to even start, because I kind of feel like it's even if I started, I'd never make it. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
it's like it's overwhelming almost because a lot of
Yes.
times it stops me from actually doing what I really need to do. And I want to know if there's any ways to that, like especially like advice from like my guides or whoever it is that what I mean. Like you have the ability to read the records. Like how can I learn to beat myself, if you will? You know what I mean? How do I overcome this sort of a thing and not feel so handicapped all the time, even though I'm really not. You know what I mean? Like how do you break that? I mean, I've started in the past week. I've really been doing a lot of like heart meditations, and like it's like a visual thing, and I've been really still. I like the idea of creating like visual, like pieces, art pieces designed for visual meditation, like you know what I mean, to help
Right.
visualize that kind of thing. But at the same time, it seems so it's like even if I did that, is there any like why would any maybe somebody would find value in that, but like like I don't know. That seems like a really interesting idea to me.
Yes.
But at the same time, what I'm trying to say is it's been helping me. Like the heart meditation is all about like releasing, like trying to go back to the fetus in the mother's womb, like where we haven't been influenced by this life yet. You know what I mean? But haven't been ground down and like before all the like the self defeating programs were installed, if you will, and
Well,
during all
I think
times.
you're actually doing you're doing more than that, and I'm going to cut to the chase with that one because in fact the root of every decision you make in your life is governed by your heart. That is where you're going. So the root is not intellectual. It's a simple binary. Do I do it or don't I do it? Or do
Mm,
I think about it, hold back, sit back, wait, don't make a decision at all?
yeah.
And those are the three options that essentially are governed by the heart. And that is why you are doing your heart meditation exercises, even though you don't realize it yet. But I'm telling you, that is what you're trying to tune into. The essence of decision making. How can I have power over that? Which is essentially power over myself.
Yeah.
Good. So, you have some questions written.
So, well, I mean, that was one of them. I mean, there's a
We'll go into a little bit more detail because I'd like to bring in the DNA and the extraterrestrial theme, or so called. I'm not entirely in agreement with the terminology extraterrestrial because I think a lot of these entity types are very terrestrial. To be quite honest, I think in a fairer description would be extra dimensional. That a lot of the influences on us through our DNA just simply cannot be seen in the conventional sense.
because they're beyond our bandwidth level.
Right, correct. They have ascended outside our dimensional range. And because we've been lied to by science and by those that cause mischief about properties of dimensions, we don't know, we can't configure the notion of true evolution or ascension.
Yeah.
In fact, the way current dimensions are currently rationalized is in terms of mathematical games, I call them. And if you do the maths, the so-called first and second dimension cannot exist.
Yeah, see, I've always thought about that.
They cannot exist.
Yeah.
It is impossible for the dimension 1 or 2, as they're mathematically outlined, to exist.
I've thought about that too, because it's like, how in the world could you even do anything if you're just a one plane? Like, it just doesn't, like, the way that they describe it.
The trouble is, you'd need depth for that one plane to actually have any resonance at all. So if it's got no depth, then it doesn't exist. It is zero. It is nothing.
So how does that affect me? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, in other words, so when I get on the extra-terrestrial, extra-dimensional aspects of things, that's where the magic really lies, I guess.
Well, you talked about your DNA and really coming to terms with that. That is quite a big statement, because unless you know what DNA stands for in entirety, I don't think you can really come to terms with that. So it's only through knowledge and understanding. So it's only through knowledge that you can start to breed understanding. So one of the things I've been trying to do over the past few years, actually, is trying to single out what determines our character trait heritage. So the moment we've got there are a range of human traits which are presumed to be just part and parcel of the human genome, and I'm saying, well, no, can we actually separate those out? And I'll give you an example. So I've said to you before that I believe you've shifted into pteroid, and pteroid is the mammalian aspect of humanity, or ape, whereas you were their code named, or their nickname Seacars, or you were reptilian before, but you made a shift from reptilian to pteroid. It's a logical shift. It comes under that the two sides of the DNA bracket under the dragon line, so it's a logical shift. But the character differences are rather different. And I'm just going to read from my website, although I keep trying to change it, but I've actually described on the webpage, and I'll provide a link to this video in the write-up. But this is what I say about the pteroids. Bear with me. Earthy, religious, virile, as in sexual, practical, and easily swayed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
Now, the reptilian character traits are vast, like ours. There are some aspects of the human character that don't exist because their DNA setup is different, but they tend to be very cunning. They are obsessive, but the obsessive qualities actually come from Syrian, which is the archetypal humanoid, i.e. human-looking type of extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional. Now you've made a shift from this cunning obsessive to practical, easily swayed, easygoing, rather very religious. So you tend to identify with certain cults or
Spirit.
cultures. Yes. I've also said that you're. I don't say it, but actually the Territes are very loyal, but within the family or extended family. So you create your own families. So you tend to stick with those people that you trust, which are more part of an extended family. Reptilians don't do that.
Mm.
Reptilians are
Honestly, yep.
competitive. They
Yeah.
do. They leverage relationships, yeah, but the relationships are always rather fickle because there is always the competitive edge. So it's
Yeah.
actually about manipulation. So it's
Boy,
manipulation of the relationship.
that fits.
And these are very common. 85% of human beings are manipulators. They don't realize it, but ultimately that's what they are. They could stand back and review their lives. They're in it for the money. They're in it for themselves. They want to get ahead. They want to gain. There is some responsibility to certain family or extended family aspects, which again is another part of the reptilian traits catalogue, which contradicts or conflicts with this manipulative getting on side.
Yeah.
But can discuss that at another time. I think we've got other things we can talk about because it doesn't apply to you.
Well, it definitely applies to my past. Some of that really like used to like feel like I had to compete with my brother, and he's as far as materialistically and everything, and like his abilities as a physical human, he definitely is surpassed me, and he's like he's just he's living his own life completely, and I'm feel like I was left behind. So it took me a couple of years to like really get over that.
Yes.
Now I much have, and it's interesting because the shift does come along with near where that time frame occurred, where the big change happened.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, interesting, interesting. So, did I answer that question? Do you want to just repeat the question because I've already forgotten it?
Um, well, I was asking, we were on the subject of DNA, and I was asking, well, like what kind of information from the records that would help me lean a clue to what is a really good thing for me to be focusing on, right? So in other words, like, is there okay? How can you help me see like what is what is my own purpose? Like, how do you answer that kind of a question so that you can so that because to me, I've always been obsessed by figuring out, and I've never been able to do it, except that like only it doesn't like it's like the or it's just that I haven't seen it, or I just haven't grasped it to the point of like, okay, now I know I can go pursue this thing. Because I've always felt like I've just been missing something big, and it's never quite been figured out. And does
Okay,
and okay,
I think you covered you're sort of asking two things in one here. So I'll deal with the first thing that doesn't really answer your question, and then we'll answer the question. So there is an expression which says practice makes perfect, and it's very simple and very easy to quote, but not very simple and easy to apply with honesty and truth
yeah,
and commitment. So that's the first thing. Um, Now, in terms of, is there a magic, sort of an Aladdin's lamp that I can rub, which gives me the perfect map of my life? And the answer is no. So you're not. I don't feel there's any Lemurian in you, but the Lemurians very distinctly followed their heart. So if their heart said, "I need to do something," then they would dedicate themselves to that thing, and they would dedicate themselves to practice makes perfect. So I think that you've just got to refer to your heart to find what that map is, and it'll be somewhere in there. And that's another reason why you're doing the heart meditation, I think, to actually find yourself, to find really what you want. But from me as an observer of you, and I've obviously known you now for a while, I feel the passion is very much in art. I just don't feel you really have fully worked out what medium that you want to use.
That is, I have definitely, that was actually in my questions because, well, I mean, not exactly like what medium to use, but it was along the same lines because, like, you know, feel like there's multiple directions.
Yes.
And I'm good with like 3D, and I want to be able to paint in 3D, but that
Yes.
requires a new computer, that requires, you know, that requires a VR set, which is another $800 on top of that, you know, to be able to do that, the kind of work. Like I could do 3D work like on the computer in 3D Studio Max, or etc. You know what I mean? Like the professional programs for like building models and whatnot. But
Yes.
that's also like anything that I want to attempt on my own. Like even like because there's ideas like about. I have ideas that keep going through my head about like doing like some kind of a. I don't know if you ever heard of The Ankle by Jodorowsky, but that was like a visual novel, like a comic, but it was very like it was very spiritual and serious in nature, but it was also sci-fi, and they did like it was really awesome. And there's a lot like I have my own stories in my head, and like I want to be able to create something like that. On the other hand, it seems so daunting, and plus, like, you know, I have the idea of like, oh, well, you could create a visual. You know what I mean? You could create a movie, like a animation, but it's so like that would have to be so far in the future. You know, I guess the only thing I could do is break it down and try to start with the visual novel and just do it page by page. I just haven't been brave enough to fully point where I want to start it yet. You know what I mean? Because I'm still working on the fundamentals. Like, this is a really weird thing too, because I've had this idea for a long time. It's in various forms, like, you know, writing a novel and all that. Except that I really want it to be visual again. Like part of the things that I've been researching over the years, all like researching like different forms of science and different like all this like, you know, like reaching into the alternate things and reaching into like the conspiracy theories, and that's what led me ultimately to meeting you. You know what I mean? And there's been the spirituality. All of that has been almost to figure out how best to structure like the world that I want to create. You know, for the novel. Like for many years, it's actually been part of the reasoning behind like upgrading like, you know, my own ideas. Like, because I didn't want to like show the normal like science fiction world. I wanted to show something completely different. You know what I mean? Like something that would actually be based in reality, so that it would change people's minds a little bit. So it'd be, you know, I wanted to be somewhat educational, even though it would be fiction.
Well, that's actually quite interesting, because that actually demonstrates the Syrian in you. So the Syrians. Now this is interesting, and I only recently learnt this, but the Lemurians, who I mentioned before, I told them about this. It's in the heart, and then you go out and undo it and become experts. Truly expert, because you have absolute commitment to the journey. Now, the Lemurians are also part Syrian, but their genetic makeup is different to human. Although, having said that, the Aboriginal types or Indian types, various around the world, they were Lemurians, so they are the new type of Lemurian. So that gives you an idea of a cut down scope, but you can understand certainly the American Redskin mystics were and the shaman all around the world. They're again example of the sort of the Lemurian mindset.
Mm.
Now, the Syrians, the Lemurians will go on for adventure, will seek adventure, whereas the Syrians don't. The Syrians go to discover.
Oh. Yes.
They want to discover new stuff, just simply to find new stuff. And that is what's coming out in you. You're wanting to go discover new stuff. And that's a very good basis for doing things.
Mm.
So you're a guaranteed winner, whatever path you choose. You're going. There's an endless discovery tour out there, and I think that's also somewhat confused your decision-making process because you've said there's so much stuff to find.
Yeah.
Where do I start?
Right. So, like, that's a question that I had was, so I don't know, like, some people, maybe I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but I've been debating on whether or not, like, to move to one of the big cities around here, which is Pittsburgh. Like, as soon as I get myself back on my feet, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna have to save up money and stuff. But my sister lives down there, and I can probably get, a better job that pays more money, and be put myself in a better position so that my life won't be so ridiculously poor that I'm ground down by it. You know what I mean? And that way, maybe, and I'd be around other people too, because it's a big city. There'd actually be women around. That'd be amazing. You know what I mean? Like, I could actually meet someone that I would actually like. Like, that is a big part of my life that's missing right now, and it's been like, I want, like what you said about the Petroid, and like, I feel like, I definitely feel like it would help me to have that kind of a connection in my life that was, like, important. That would help me. Like, I want someone who's artistic too. You know what I mean? Because that would be interesting to be able to at least just, like, even if it was musically, to be able to interact with someone on a regular basis who was into that sort of a flow state kind of thing. Like, I think you could create like great things together, as opposed to, I don't know if that's just fantasy, or if that's like the actual thing that's built into me.
I think that it's very clear that you're looking for a partner, a live partner, which is actually quite uncommon. Quite uncommon. That most people end up getting cornered into life partnerships.
I broke out of. I'm divorced now, so I mean, I've been divorced for years.
Yes, yes. So you're already aware of that. So you're now at the point where you're looking for a life partner rather than for somebody to pretend you like because you're physically attracted to them.
Yeah, I can't do that. And that's been a problem because I don't know how you meet people in this day and age. You know what I mean? Like, especially because I'm in my 30s now, so that's even, like, it's weirder because at least when you were younger, dating was more normal, I guess. Like, I mean, now I just feel I've been left behind with the times. I haven't had a hard time with anything. It's just been difficult.
Well, I think again, this comes back to you taking control of your destiny. And I think when when the first piece falls into place, all the pieces will fall into place. So to answer your question about going to Pittsburgh in the big city, well, the big city can just offer more of the same if you're not careful.
Yes.
So what you have now actually is you're just going to get lots more of it. So what you have to do is be determined, or be clear on what you want to get out of Pittsburgh. Have very, very clear defined goals. And that's why I said to you before, you should start to actually write your own business plan.
Yes.
Which actually then will convert into your life. and I know you've started it, but you haven't done it as in the structured way that you need to, and that is something you've got to come to terms with.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
a
pardon
mixture of fantasy and realism. So the fantasy side is that your world is your oyster. You can become a rock star or anything. But the realism is, what have you got to offer that role that you've projected for your life, and then you start to script that role, and that then becomes something you can take to an interview because you're already 50% of the way there. No, I don't have any experience, but this is what I can bring to the table. That's what I can apply. And I say, my goodness, yes, you don't, but I can see you've got potential. We're going to give you a try.
So would it be fair to say then it might be better to wait for, like, I mean, why? I got to get back on my feet anyway. But if during this time period, because I got to get the next surgery and I'll be down for at least 2 weeks of not being able to do much again, to get the metal out and begin the last leg of my healing process. If I, start to try to do practice makes perfect, in theory, I should be able to, as I get better, be able to figure out more of what I really need to do. Would you say that? You know what I mean? Like, in other words, then it should be some kind of direction, because at that I can work out that plan that you mentioned as I do this.
Well, there are two things. So on the practice makes perfect. Let me just give you a little background. I've obviously reached quite a high standard at performing piano. My goal is to become as good as technically proficient as is possible for my body, and I'm getting very close. Now, to reach that standard of ultimate technical proficiency, the biggest ingredient that's required is honesty, personal honesty. And so what I did for many years was I would play the same sections of pieces over and over and over and convince myself they were fantastic when they weren't. So I was practicing, but it wasn't making perfect. You get my drift?
Yeah.
So now your stage is you've got to get into this personal honesty. Am I producing, and am I good enough to judge myself? So if you don't feel you are good enough to judge yourself, you need to go to experts for assistance, and obviously that's going to cost money probably, unless you can find a particularly generous one. So, but that is the next step where, and certainly when I undertook piano seriously, I got coaching for a number of years before I was ready. I'd reached that level of appreciation of the craft that I could actually teach myself. In fact, I know of no great composers or great pianists that were able to teach themselves, that taught themselves without any assistance from others. I do not believe it is possible.
Interesting.
In human. So with your art, if you haven't had lessons, then you're now at the stage where you're going to have to go and put your head on the chopping block, as they say, and seek some professional tuition, which then you can use to adapt your current range, expressive range. And there were things that I can do now on the piano with ease that I did not believe was possible. And I couldn't understand how these other concert pianists could do it. And now I can do them with ease. But the key was understanding the core principles and being able to apply the core principles in the field. And that wasn't a simple process. That was a very long-winded process in some cases. Some of these techniques that I can master now, they took 5 years. And it wasn't a case of just simply going and doing that or whatever was needed to do. You had to do all sorts of other things, little steps, to get up to the level that you were able to do that master technique. And the same you'll find with art, that you cannot run before you can walk. And yes, going alone, you can do some really good things, but you can't find that full expressive range. And we go back full circle, because that was one of your very first questions you brought up. How can I feel I'm blinkered. It's in there, but it's because you're not proficient enough to do what you want to do. And that proficiency journey, I can tell you, will take years, certainly if you're honest with yourself. But if you have the dedication to go down the path, you're going to be great at the end of it. And even if nobody else cares, you will know you are great. And ultimately, we build this idea that life is all about money and prestige and success, but it's not. Life is all about you personally being great. Who cares about the others and what they think? Providing in your heart you know that you've succeeded, that's all that counts. And the critics are then only jealous. So have you got any more questions for me?
No, I'm really. You've given me a lot to process.
I thought that was enough. I thought that last bit was enough. So I thought we pretty much covered the root of the problem. So there are two things. So to recap, there are two things. Firstly, the grass is greener is never, ever greener on the other side, unless you know what's there. And you're going there for a specific purpose. Or you're very lucky. Yeah, luck can play a part in these things. And secondly, the only way, there is only one path to enlightenment. And that path is called proficiency. So if you're not proficient, you will not become enlightened. Now, any skill is a form of enlightenment.
Well, that's really
proficiency makes the skills.
So
now, one of the things we were talking about last time, and I think we were finishing one off as we started this interview, but you were talking about giving up smoking.
which hasn't happened yet. But I mean, I don't know. Well, see, I bumped into something which puts it because like if you're smoking, especially if you're smoking a little bit better of stuff and you don't smoke as much, which has been happening, or you know what I mean? Like I've been trying to cut back a little bit, but it's like almost a shamanic protective thing to smoke tobacco. I mean, there's ways to abuse it, but there's ways that it's actually technically okay. So at the moment, I've been slowly trying to get myself towards a point where maybe I would be able to do that, but it hasn't been able to happen yet. I was.
Well, this is another symptom of the pteroid where I said you're easily swayed. And addictive qualities are come to the forefront. So if you've got they call them addictive personalities. Actually, there are two types. One is reptilian, and the other is pteroid. And you're expressing those addictive qualities in the fact that you can't seem to prize yourself away, and that's also impinging on your discipline. And one of the reasons I wanted you to give it a red hot go was because it will reflect on other aspects of your life where you can start to discipline yourself much more in a much more focused way than you have been. Currently your discipline is good, but it's a bit haphazard.
Yeah, this is true. So I need to know what I want specifically with things. I need to create a business plan. I should find some form of artistic mentor, or you know, what I mean, like try to find some,
Yes,
like tutoring or something. Eventually, at least, I might as well get what I can done, and you know now, and train myself until I get to the position where I can afford to do that.
That's right. Get as much done without money as you can. And obviously, when you get to the point where you need money, well, then you need money. And the most important thing, certainly if you plan to go to Philadelphia, is you know precisely, certainly in relation to you and your needs, what's there.
Okay.
It's not an adventure holiday.
Well, see, here's the other thing: is there's a down in New Mexico. Apparently, there's a couple of towns down there. I forget exactly which one it was. I don't remember if it was the capital, but like apparently there's a lot of artists that end up there. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a the writer of Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin. He owns this huge psychedelic themed. Well, basically, it's basically like they have a big huge warehouse, and they do like almost like a artistic psychedelic themed theme park inside of it, where you like all the art displays are interactive, and everything's like, you know, like sculptures and all kinds of crazy stuff all around, and using high tech type things to, you know, enhance the experience. And it's like paid for by George R.R. Martin, but it's a whole bunch of artists working on this thing that, you know, it's like something that, you know, you never hear about anywhere else. And I wonder if that would be, you know what I mean? Like, in other words, why wouldn't I just think about trying to go somewhere where there are a lot of artists so that, you know what I mean, I could at least be around a support group. You know what I mean?
No, I look at that in a different way. So, you know, where there's lots of artists, there's lots of competition. So you're going into a den of vipers who really see you as competition. And second, and B, you're opening yourself up for exploitation. So if you're wanting somewhere to take art, you go to a place where there's no artists. That is the place you need to be, because then you become a commodity. Now, the only thing that you have to then work out is how you can get yourself noticed. So how do you market yourself? And what do you market? What's required? Where's the need?
Yeah.
So you're looking at that you're a reptilian, you're looking as a parasite. Well, there's lots of them. I can parasite off that community. You see, that's really what's going on here. I can parasite, and they're gonna, you know, we're in the same. No, it's all bullshit. So, in fact, I had a conversation very recently with somebody, and and they said more or less the same thing. Can we be friends to support each other? And I said, well, I don't like the word support. It's very deceptive. Don't you mean trade? Now this person happens to be a female, so I could have been the devil's advocate and say, well, you know, support. What do you mean by that? Are you talking about money? Are you talking about sex? Well, I need, I need. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in reality, so support then becomes this airy-fairy term where low self-esteem people essentially just want to be lied to. Where you say, no, you're perfectly healthy even though you've got late-stage cancer. And I come to support you by lying to you. No, you look fantastic. You're not dying at all. But I'm giving you a pile of lies. It's all lies. But I'm supporting you, you see. Because you're of low self-esteem, not surprisingly, you've got late-stage cancer. You see what I'm saying? So in reality, there are no support networks. There's only you and your heart. And the support networks are the cop-out.
Okay.
Unless you want to trade. And then support networks are there for you to try and arbitrate a living. So they're not really support networks, you're just using that facility to try and get somewhere. No, the way I see your career progression going is this. If you look at Pittsburgh, you find somewhere you think you need to be. You have a very clear, and that might mean researching Pittsburgh and even looking at the job market there and seeing who's advertising who's looking for what. It's a 50-50 thing. And then you look to sidestep. So you go in to do this, but you actually want to do that. So maybe you go in and think about marketing, because marketing is an area that you can start to use digital of your own. Initially, perhaps you'll be using other people's digital, and then you can build a name for yourself. That's where I'd be looking at. It also means you can start to use your writing as well. Maybe a paid internship. You're a bit old for that, but that will be a start. You probably get a lot more money than you're getting at the moment, even doing an internship. To be quite honest, in marketing.
It's true.
So I think I've given you a tremendous amount to think about.
Yeah, you did. I was writing down notes. For recording, then I listen to it again and re-pick everything else out. Like, whatever it is that I might have missed or I got in a second, and then like it's not quite ready for me to write it down because I can't remember it, but off the top of my head until I think about it.
Yes. Well, I think we've covered. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I hope it also reflects on some of the viewers' lives that they're experiencing the same, not necessarily identical scenarios, but there are aspects of what you've come up with and what I've come up with that will apply. I feel we've achieved something from this interview.
Yes.
So so with that, unless you've got any other questions, thank you very much for your time today.
Yes, thank you too very much, Steve.